Hello, Internet! I've already talked about this game before, but let's look at it a little more closely. When people think of box art for NES games, they think of this, black box with a series label and artwork inspired by the graphics you see in-game. During the second generation of consoles, the box art for games looked really good, but it led to people buying games thinking they would get what was on the box only to be treated with this, so Nintendo wanted to make box art that was a little more accurate to what you'd actually get. That's why they're the best. Anyway, they released 30 games in this style, so I want to talk about the 29 games I haven't already. First off, we have the Sports series. They're not much, but many of them share this little jingle that's kinda cute. Many of these only require the A button and maybe the D-pad, like baseball, tennis, 10-yard fight, golf, soccer, and volleyball, which I can't win to save my life. And serve! One game in this series that does stick out is Slalom. Developed by Rare years before they became famous, the game goes for this 3D perspective that wasn't very common at the time. Another game is Pro Wrestling, which is actually really in-depth with a lot of moves, but it's absolutely brutal. I can't even get past Starman. Next up are the Robot and Light Gun series, which were designed around the NES Zapper and Rob the Robot. Because if there's anything Nintendo's better at than honest marketing, it's extra plastic. None of this was really necessary, and that's why I love it. First we have Gyromite, a game where Rob the Robot helps you by placing spinners on buttons to press them. You can send signals from the TV to tell Rob what to do, and while it's cool to see him do it, it takes a long time, and you're better off just giving the second controller to another person or using it yourself. Now, Stack Up is more focused on Rob the Robot himself, and it offers a fun little challenge. Your goal is to make him, well, stack up colored blocks in the right pattern by jumping on keys and pressing start when you're done. Although you can just press start whenever you want and move on to the next level. Alright, time to beat the Stack Up speedrun world record. Now the Zapper games are where it's at. Duck Hunt is a classic. All you have to do is take down ducks with your trusty hunting dog, although it is annoying when you run out of ammo and he laughs at you. At least there's no one to laugh at you when you're shooting clay pigeons. Hogan's Alley is another great one. You have to shoot the gangsters without hurting innocent civilians. There's a few different modes, including a trick shot challenge. Wild Gunman is also fairly simple, with a dueling mode, as well as an all-out shootout. Gumshoe is the weirdest one out of all of them. It's basically an auto runner, but you can launch your character into the air by shooting him with a zapper gun. It's tough too, there's tons of obstacles to dodge. And now we have the arcade series. Wow, arcade quality games at home. It was about time too. Donkey Kong on NES is a fairly faithful port of the arcade original. The levels are played in order like the original Japanese version, although it is missing the Pie Factory level. Donkey Kong Jr. is even better, with all the levels returning from the original arcade version. The very different Donkey Kong 3 stars Stanley the Bugman, a character from an old Game & Watch game, and its port to the NES is also very accurate. Mario Bros. Is likely the most faithful one out of all of these, although given how the original arcade game was fairly simple and released pretty close to the Japanese Famicom, it was probably made with the system in mind. Fun fact, the first version of Donkey Kong was a Popeye game before the rights fell through, but Nintendo did eventually get to make a Popeye game. Unfortunately, its NES counterpart wasn't able to display sprites as big as the arcade ones. And then there's Donkey Kong Jr. Math, the only title in the educational series. I mean, if you have another player, it could be a fun little competitive game, but there's really not much to it aside from just doing math problems. School's not until next month, why am I doing math now? Making stuff is more my thing. The Programmable series featured 3 games that actually had level editors, 2 of which were bike-based. Excite Bike is a cute little side-scrolling racing game, Mach Rider adds a weapon to fire and a 3D camera angle, and Wrecking Crew is another arcade-style Mario game, albeit one where he can't jump. But the Action series is the best. Pinball is a standard virtual pinball game, although Mario appears on the box yet is seemingly nowhere to be seen. That's weird, I thought the point of these boxes were to show you what the games were actually like. But lo and behold, by carefully aiming the ball into a specific hole, you can actually find a little Mario minigame. Clue Clue Land is likely the strangest game here, where you have to swing around on pegs to change direction and map out a picture. Urban Champion is one of the earliest fighting games, and it kinda shows. You can do a high punch, low punch, strong punch, or weak punch. There are people throwing things at you from the windows, and the goal is to knock your opponent into the open sewer. Maybe he ends up in that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles NES game. Kung Fu is much more fast-paced, even featuring some voice clips, although it is pretty tough. Balloon Fight is great. All you have to do is knock out all the enemies on screen, but the momentum-based aerial gameplay is super satisfying to get the hang of, and it's put to the test in the endurance-based balloon trip. And Ice Climber has always been my personal favorite, breaking ice blocks Mario style, whacking enemies with your hammer, and grabbing vegetables on your way to the top feels awesome. And that's the Black Box NES games. They all look great in the lineup. I'm glad the NES library has so much visual consistency. Oh, come on!